All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust meeting. First item on the agenda is to call the meeting to order. Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the May 23rd, 2023 trust meeting. Are there any questions? If not, we can take a motion. We have a motion.
It's not coming up for a second. It's not coming up. No, that's not.
That's Mary Ann.
No. Sorry. Wrong.
There we go. We have a motion and a second. Please vote.
She got it.
And the item passes. Brings us to item 3, ratification of claims. Any questions or comments? If not, we can take a motion. Have a motion and a second. Please vote. That item passes as well. Brings us to item 4 on the agenda, items for individual consideration. Item 4A is a joint resolution approving an allocation not to exceed $4,200,000 from tax increment district number D in support of the Harlow project. Ms. McSpadden?
I'm just going to do a quick introduction. So this is, like you said, a $4.2 million allocation. The TIF would be provided over 12 years. So the first 8 years would be a 70% of the property tax generated, and then years 9 through 12 would be 50% of the property tax generated on the project. I'm going to invite Dick Tannenbaum to come up. Cindy Murillo will come up after him to give details. He'll give an introduction. So.
Afternoon.
Afternoon.
I'm Dick Tannenbaum, CEO of Gardner Tannenbaum Holdings. We're a real estate development firm here in Oklahoma City. We do industrial and residential, multifamily. Ms. Murillo is our COO, Matt Donovan's our CFO, Mr. Stephen Tannenbaum is our Executive Vice President of Brazilian Operations, who's in town visiting. We developed prior retrofits, historic retrofits, the Montgomery, the Park Harvey, the Classen, most recently the Lincoln, called the Presley on Lincoln. Very interesting work, and I think we got the gem of all gems, the Harlow. Oklahoma City's come a long way since we did the Montgomery. Ms. Murillo is going to present the Harlow, and we're here to answer anything and everything because we certainly need your help. Just as a curious note, when we did the Park Harvey, the Class, and the Montgomery, our average cost to buy those buildings was about $20 a foot, which is about the same shape as we're buying now. We're buying the Duncan building and the bank first. We did buy them. That cost was $60 a foot. So Oklahoma City's increased quite a bit. I believe we spent about $85 a foot per square foot to retrofit all those other buildings. Same basic scope of work that we're doing here. This is $350 a foot. So it's great for Oklahoma City. The rents haven't increased to that extent. They've increased somewhat. But to make this thing work, we absolutely need your help, and we certainly need this TIF consideration. So without further ado, I will have Ms. Cindy Murillo present our new gem. We're ready to go come August, September. It's about a 1.5-year plan. It's really, to me, the new center of Oklahoma City. We've got the Skirvin, we've got Bank First building, the old Cotter Ranch, or whatever you want to call it. You've got Harold Hamm and his Continental building. Paycom Center is moving to the old, hopefully, Sheridan. I mean, that Broadway and Park, Broadway and Main is just going to be very exciting, and it's been pretty quiet right now. And quite frankly, because of everything that's happened at First National, thanks to Gary Brooks, we're the end cap, so it's going to be a most exciting block of development for Oklahoma City. We're just incredibly, this one's cool, really cool. Can't wait to tour everybody during construction and after, hopefully. And now I'll present Ms. Cindy Murillo. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, members of the trust. Super excited to present to you today the Harlow. As Mr. Tannenbaum mentioned, many members of our team have been together for close to 20 years. This project by far will be one of the most exciting projects that I am very excited to be a part of. 2 historic buildings, as Dick mentioned, he bought within this past year. They sit on the corner, and I'll take you through that during the presentation, on the corner of Broadway and Park Avenue, and on the corner of Main and Broadway. So I will take you through the presentation. Okay, just a small project overview. Both buildings consist of a little over 100,000 square feet each. One is 10 stories and one is 12 stories. Okay. Just to sort of give you an orientation as to where these 2 buildings sit, they flank the building, the First National Center. A very interesting fact about this is they all connect underground, and I'll get into that in just a moment. So let's talk about 101 Broadway. So it's a 10-story historic building that will include 145 studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments on floors 3 through 10. The top floor provides for an opportunity for some balcony units so you can look up and down Broadway Avenue. Some of the building amenities that will include in this particular building will include our management office and our professional management team. A bulk of our amenities will be in this building. Some of you may know this building as the Bank First building. Has beautiful architecture, and we are going to restore that back to its 1921 features. In this particular building, we will have co-work booths with co-working stations, lounges that are all complimentary to our residents, a resident movie theater that very much has the spirit and feel of 1920s era, a resident bar and lounge, conference centers that are equipped with Wi-Fi and conferencing capability. Again, this is all free of charge to our residents. A fitness studio and virtual training, a resident game room featuring shuffleboard, foosball, golden tee, and a phenomenal pet spa. This is an illustration of that second floor mezzanine. This is actually here today. Beautiful ceiling work. We're going to restore some of this building just through the years. There's been some construction. We're going to bring it back to its original glory. This is also another illustration. We'll have co-work booths and stations for residents to sit in areas. These are smaller units, so this is a little untypical than what you would see in a normal market rate community. Some of these units are about 375 feet, so we felt that it was very important to have a lot of amenity space for this project. This is an illustration of sort of a 1920s style movie theater. This is a representation of the floor plan. It's stacked from floors 3 through 9. The 10th floor, it's orientated a little bit differently. We have some balcony opportunities and so forth for the residents. We're doing something a little bit different. So this is the lower level floor plan that actually has that connectivity to the underground. We also have some units that are underground as well that's connected to the amenity space. We've got a fitness center, spa, et cetera. This will have 24-hour access to the underground, and we'll have fob entry. So now we'll get into 100 Park Avenue. So this is the old medical arts facility, medical arts building. It's a 12-story historic building with 120 studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments on floors 2 through 12. We will have some amenity space on that second floor. The lower level will actually have connectivity, as I mentioned before, to First National Center and the other building, 101 Broadway. We'll also add something a little bit interesting, some bowling lanes to this facility as well. So this is the street level. So this is at the corner of Broadway and Park Avenue. So we are programming space for a restaurant right there on the corner. It's catty corner from the Skirvin. IBC Bank is the existing tenant and will remain. And then to the west of that we'll reopen that space. This has been vacant for some years. We envision a coffee shop or a retailer in this space as well. We're in negotiations right now with a couple of tenants. Okay, so this is kind of an interesting picture. So this slide that you're looking at right now was actually closed during the construction of First National Center. So we are going to reopen this during the renovation to actually promote engagement between First National Center and 101 Park Avenue, 101 Park Avenue, and our residents. It gives our residents an opportunity to engage with the restaurant space, the hotel, hotel guests and residents from First National Center can also participate in the activities and so forth, back and forth between the two facilities. So on floors 2 through 12, this is a representative floor plan with amenity space, and they stack from 3 through 12. So we talked about the underground and that connectivity. So we're really super excited about the opportunity to bring this energy back to this portion of Oklahoma City to create that engagement, and all these three of these buildings connect with each other. And this is a illustration from the street view. Okay, so let's talk about unit mix. So before I mentioned there was studio 1 and 2 bedroom apartments that are programmed, 265 of those with an average footage of 586 feet. The average market rents will be $1,348. And I do think it's important to mention that 87 of these units will have a starting price point of $1,070. Okay, so we also, as with all of our projects, we've done about 9 of these. Multifamily consists, Dick mentioned, consisting of historic renovations and also market rate apartments. So before we engage in any particular project, we take a deep dive into our market and we find out what is needed. And so I do think it's important that we included some of the things that we wouldn't normally include in our market study, as we took the context of adding some communities with an affordable component to their properties into this to really sort of illustrate where we land in that. And I think it's important that we have 2 projects that are shown here, the Muse and the Still Yard, that do have that affordable component, and we land in a sort of a right-sized spot here. At the top of that, so we're at $1,348 as an average market rent, and so we're at the lower end of that scale. So now we'll get into the sources and uses of funds. So it's a $69.9 million project, and to the left you'll see this is the loan proceeds that we have requested. We have several things in this particular financial stack that consists of the historic tax credit bridge loans and the federal tax credits up front, and then the use of funds is on the right. So we have the building acquisition, hard and soft costs of construction, development financing, and so forth. Okay, so the immediate housing inventory demand and the TIF need. So the current interest rates and unstable construction costs have had a direct impact on how development projects are financed under our current market conditions. This allocation of the ad valorem taxes for 12 years will equate to housing sustainability. We are planning for the 8 years at a 70% rebate and 4 years at 50% rate. The project accomplishes a few things. The immediate needs for housing demand is met. It addresses high occupancy in downtown Oklahoma City by bringing 265 units to market faster. It also will eliminate about 200,000 square feet of vacant office space in our downtown market. And as I mentioned before, there's a very low occupancy rate in downtown Oklahoma City of less than 3%, and this has been the case for the past 18 months. That equates to us, it's a serious demand in downtown Oklahoma City. The entry price point is $1,040, and we are planned a target start of construction, demolition in August of this late summer. Project statistics. So as I mentioned, our starting point is $1,040. Average rents are $70 less than affordable communities in the downtown market. 2 historic buildings that represent a conversion of over 200,000 square feet of office, taking that off the market. We have programmed over 4,000 square foot of restaurant and retail space for a grand total of $69.9 million. You see the development and the architecture team listed on the slide. And that is all I have. And we're open to any questions that you may have.
Very good.
Thank you.
Oh, you can stay here.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Go ahead.
Cindy and Dick, will the design of the actual units interior, will they be similar in nature, the 2 buildings?
Oh, totally, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
you actually get economies of scale by making sure that we have the same representation between the 2 buildings.
My wife Glenna is in charge of the
Well,
the
then it'll
core,
be
and it's pretty
nicely
authentic. It's
designed.
really, Harlow, the 20s, very cool.
Okay,
Kids are going to love it.
cool.
But it's one complex. So we have to really work hard on marketing the connectivity. It's the Harlow. It's not 2 buildings, it's 1. We accomplished that at the Lincoln, the Presley. Those were 2 different buildings. We connected them. Tenants love it. They interact. It's going to be pretty exciting, we think. And it's two minutes from where I live and where I work, so poor subs. They're gonna see
I
me-
feel for them,
They're gonna
yes.
see me every day.
Thank you.
I also have a question. You mentioned a wait list, so do you already have a wait list for this?
No,
Funny enough, we actually
We do?
do. Yes, so,
She's
yes,
hired.
absolutely, it's already leased, just kidding. No, we actually, so we have a pretty decent reputation in this market with respect to our projects existing and projects that we have sold previously. Our tenants, residents, they actually have reached out to us now, and we have actually put them on a wait list now because we have a high level of customer service. We recognize that it's customers first, they kind of dictate to us, how we do business. So yeah, we actually have about 3 people, not a big list right now, but about 3 people on the list.
But we do have a wait list at the Park RV, the Presley, Liberty Creek out by Tinker. It's a great market right now. I don't know about the Montgomery or the Classen because we sold those,
Wonderful. And do they come furnished or not?
unfurnished.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, we stay away from the corporate deal because the furniture and the rental and, we want people to, we work real hard in management and marketing and events and amenities, so they'll stay there. At the end of a year lease, someone moves out, it's going to cost you. So we look at that percentage and make sure that they're leaving because they're getting married or moving out of town or moving in with their parents because they lost some, but never because we're moving someplace else. So we work real hard on keeping our tenants.
Wonderful. And is it theater for the residents? Okay. And then
Yes.
All the amenities are for the residents.
Okay.
Absolutely.
They bring a
Including-
friend, we got to give them a whole test.
Sure, and I think it's important to say that we add value, so we don't nickel and dime our residents, so it's not a CAM charge here or an added charge, it's.
Starbucks.
Yeah, Starbucks free, at all of our communities, we offer free Starbucks every day, we actually have machines, and they do this, and it's on him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any further questions, we can take a motion. Item 4A. We have a motion and a second. Please vote. And the item passes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Looking
We
forward to
appreciate
it.
it. Thank you. Once again.
All right, next on the agenda is item 4B, a joint resolution approving an allocation not to exceed $1 million for film incentives with Dirt Road Films LLC. Joanne?
Hi there. I just wanted to give you a quick introduction. So we've got 2 film projects. Jill Simpson with the Film Office at the Chamber is going to come present both of those. If you will recall, we have a policy that we adopted earlier this year. We amended it earlier this year. We've been talking about it for quite a while. It's very prescribed. It has a set maximum for those incentives. We use an economic model, which they're going to talk about, that kind of helps us determine what that amount is. So just a quick intro. I can reshare that policy with all of you. I'll send that to you just so you have that for your records since we're talking about it today. I'll have Jill come up and present the 2 projects.
Good afternoon. I have asked Eric Long to be with me. He's from the Greater Oklahoma City Chamber and part of the team that put together the economic impact modeler that we're using. So I'm Jill Simpson. I think I've met most of you, Executive Director of the Oklahoma City Film and Creative Industries Office. And I'm excited to present to you, we have 2 applicants that have been conditionally pre-qualified for the rebate program. We are using code names for the projects. The first one is covered by a non-disclosure agreement, so I will be talking in very broad strokes and really focusing on the economic impact numbers for the project. Do I move the cursor here? Okay, that's okay. So you'll see it's a feature project, major studio film. They're budgeted just under $200 million. I believe it's $198 million. And the key thing to know about this project is that in probably 30 years, we've never had a project quite this size and of this type. Yes, we had Killers of the Flower Moon in Oklahoma, but this one's different in that it's a called a tent pole feature in that it's the planned biggest summer release of 2024 for this major studio. So with that comes a lot of confidentiality, and I believe it has to do with them trying to protect their investment of this huge amount of money so that they ensure ticket sales when it's time to market it in the summer. So the Chamber of Commerce did sign a non-disclosure. Their anticipated Oklahoma expenditures based on their application is $42.6 million over 4 months, and that's direct spend. We have an Oscar-nominated director from 2021. There are 2 legendary, and I do mean legendary, Oscar-winning producers attached to this project. One of them has been on the ground the whole time here. Their filming dates have been May 8th to July 21st. I would like to explain that we were in a bit of an unusual situation with this film in that they applied the minute our program went live back in December. At that point, we were still trying to get our application, completely locked and working together to try to get our economic impact modeler completed. So that's why you're just now getting this application. It was no fault of their own. It was just that we opened the door and we had this huge project ready to go. Estimated number of OKC metro area hires is 2,294. At a time when we're trying to grow the industry, we use a 7-county MSA qualification for crew. So it's not just Oklahoma County, but Logan, Cleveland, McLean, Grady, it's a seven county area. As far as actual goods and services, they've got to be in the Oklahoma City metro, within our borders. Of the crew hires, 67% are from Oklahoma City area. Qualifying labor is $19.8 million. Set construction and filming on Oklahoma City sound stages is 40 days, and they are at Prairie Surf for all of those set days, and they've built major sets within the studio, the main floor there. Location filming, OKC metro area, 50% Oklahoma City location days, 50% of filming that did not qualify them for the 10%. They would have to have filmed 75% of their days, 75% of the total filming in the city, and they didn't meet that requirement, so they're at 5%. We had something really exciting happen, and that is that the studio came to us. They have a program called Studio Global Talent Development and Inclusion Workforce Program. And through that program, we were able to connect them with Oklahoma City Community College, the Film Education Institute of Oklahoma, the Cherokee Nation, Oklahoma Film Training Academy at Green Pastures. Those groups all helped us identify individuals from the underserved community that could qualify to be a workforce trainee. The qualifications were that they had to have 1 credit, and they couldn't currently be in school because they needed to be able to be available to work. They were able to be assigned in departments ranging from electrical, construction, catering, transportation, greenskeeping, visual effects, accounting, and with those departments, they were assigned a mentor. So they weren't just placed on the set, to stand and observe. They were actually given a mentor who would teach them throughout the production. So we see this as a major win for us and something we hope we can replicate going forward. They have endeavored to use as many local vendor contracts as possible. Again, they're not getting the full 10%, so they're not required. But so far, in talking to the studio, I believe they had 130 local contracts, across 500 local individual vendors. They're using 10 Oklahoma City hotels to house their crew. Percentage of local hires for extras is 100%, and I know that some of the cast members have been local as well. Okay, now we get into the impact numbers, and that is where our RPAS numbers come into play. Could you just talk a little bit about how we arrived at this program before we go through the numbers?
Sure. So for traditional economic development projects, office, industrial projects, we utilize our past economic impact model regional project assessment system. It's been something that we've been using for over 20 years. So when we opened the new film office, it was a natural progression for us to go ahead and expand that into a film model. It utilizes the same in-plan multipliers as our traditional impact analysis tool. The in-plan is the most commonly utilized economic impact multipliers in the nation, both in the public and private sector. And so this allowed us to generate overall impact numbers, evaluate total expenditures, and offer the ability to cap an incentive based on above-the-line expenditures.
Thanks, Eric. And you'll see the output numbers on this project are tremendous. For a $42.6 million expenditure and a $98 million budget, we have an output of $258 million. I would urge you to remember this is a huge project. They're not all going to be this big, but this one is particularly large. Jobs supported, direct and indirect, are 2,787. Labor income, 40.6 million. The qualified expenditures are 31.3 million. Of those expenditures, 12.2 million are taxable, and the below-the-line salary and per diem were at 8 million. Below the line, I just want to remind you what that means. It really refers to a demarcation line in a budget. Anything above the line is the director, producers, principal cast, underlying rights to a screenplay, and writer salary. Below the line refers to all of the salaries, goods, and services associated with making the film. So one other point to make, of the above the line, we cap that at 25%, so they can't make their budgets top heavy to qualify huge salaries. Okay, I'm ready for the next one, thank you. So again, this is a feature film. They are hitting a lot of the upticks, even though they don't have to, because they're only at 5%. They're filming in Oklahoma City sound stages. More than 50% of their crew is comprised of Oklahoma City metro residents. 50% of contracts with Oklahoma City vendors. They've made every effort, as studio films across the board are doing these days, most of them have DEI programs and make every effort to include diversity hires and contracts with the vendors. They're pre-qualified for the Oklahoma State rebate program, so they will be working with the state and with the city on their final claims. They're anticipated to have local expenditures, again, of $42.6 million. The Oklahoma City rebate program is capped for local expenditures of $10 million or more at $1 million. So that's the most they could qualify for. Even though their expenditures would qualify them really for close to $2 million, we're capped at $1 million. There was one other point that I missed there. Oh, so we are recommending an allocation of up to $1 million based on them meeting all the requirements of the program. And just final things to keep in mind, they are here. In case you think, oh, they're already here and they're already filming, why the rebate now? They would not be here without the promise of this Oklahoma City incentive. Not the promise, but the conditional pre-qualification. They were looking heavily at Georgia. The studio was pushing the production to go to Georgia. The director wanted to be here. He filmed his last film here that he was nominated for an Oscar for, and he was a champion in helping us land the project. But again, the Oklahoma City incentive helped push this transaction over the top. So it's a combination of what the state could offer and what the city of Oklahoma City could offer. As the state's film industry continues to grow, the incentives are very much a part of the economic impact and jobs creation. And this program in particular, as you well know, was created to keep as much of that work here in the metro as possible. And this is a perfect example of the program working, because were it not for this, it wouldn't be here. It's another tool for strategically investing in workforce and infrastructure and raising awareness of Oklahoma City. And I will say that with this film, we're going to have incredible opportunities for free global marketing, awareness of Oklahoma City on a world stage based on the marketing efforts that the studio will provide for this production. Are there any questions I can answer?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Of the 50 days that they are not filming in the Oklahoma City area, is it outside the state or,
No, it's just really adjoining communities.
okay,
It's El Reno. They've been in El Reno quite a lot. I'm going blank on the little towns, but it's basically just outside of our 7-county area.
gotcha. And ultimately, because you've signed an NDA, but when you say the studio will help promote the fact of Oklahoma City, will it be known that it's Oklahoma City where this is
We
filmed, or is
have
it just ending credits?
We have a logo requirement in the end credits. We had a press release ready to go, and then the writer's strike happened, and at that point, I believe this is one of the last few films that the studio still has filming because of the writer's strike and the possibility of an actor's strike. So it's been a perfect storm of a lot of unusual things happening at one time on this project, and I can't speak for what the studio will do, but we'll make every effort in making it known where the film was shot.
Gotcha. Well, I commend you on this initiative. It's critical for the creative industries to have this opportunity to get involved, to get trained, and so on, and it's just going to add our economic engine in this arena, so thank you.
Thank you. And one other thing that I always love to share, both the state and the city rebate programs, they're performance-based. If they're not meeting all the requirements when they turn in their receipts and third-party review, that's all looked at again at the end. There's a pre-qualification and then a qualification phase.
When you mentioned the workforce piece, were they also in conversation, or did they mention career techs as well?
That came through Jeanette Stanton with the state office. The studio is working directly with her. We're all talking to Career Tech about all things workforce, so I wouldn't be a bit surprised. I mean, that's a big piece of how we're trying to grow the workforce programs in the state.
Great, thank you. And I, as well, I'm excited to hear about more projects like this, but this is a great way to kind of take the initiative on this new rebate and just having the impact in the city with this large investment.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have any other questions, we can take a motion on item 4B. All right, we have a motion second. Please vote. And the item passes. Brings us to item 4C, a joint resolution approving an allocation not to exceed $21,390 for film incentives with Defiant Vanity LLC. Ms. Simpson?
Sure, and as I mentioned, there are going to be all sizes of projects. This one is the other end of the spectrum in every sense. Project Urban is a film written, being produced and directed by 3 young men who were born and raised in Oklahoma City, and they come from diverse backgrounds. This is their first feature project. It's a small budget. Their budget is $650,000 overall. Their Oklahoma City expenditures are estimated at $518,425. Would you mind advancing this? That's okay. 2 of the 3 filmmakers, as I mentioned, are diverse backgrounds. Filming dates are May 1st to June 2nd, 2023. Again, they applied back in February, and actually we were still working on RPAS at that point, the economic impact modeler. So we are making an exception for them since it was us getting our program ready to go at the time. By the numbers, estimated number of local OKC Metro hires is 145. Estimated number of working days for OKC Metro residents, 785. 93% Oklahoma City residents are on the crew. Qualifying labor, 280,000 plus. set construction and filming just one day. They're, I believe, at Green Pastures for that one day, and the rest of that is location days. So they had a total of 20 filming days. It's a pretty small footprint. The writer-director is a young man who I have had the pleasure of knowing for about a year now, Benjamin Tafara. His producer is his brother, who goes by the name of Sly Rex, who's also a rapper. And the film is about the urban music scene in Oklahoma City. 75% of the cast identifies Black, Indigenous, and people of color. 50% of the production crew identify as BIPOC. And we'll get to the impacts now. Their total economic output is 1.2 million. Jobs supported, direct and indirect, are 150. Labor income, a little over 503,000. And they had qualifying expenditures of 427,804. Taxable expenditures, 70,118. And salary and below the line per diem of roughly 183,000. Okay. Key things to know about this project: they are qualified. Their budget threshold in Oklahoma City did not meet the 10% minimum of $5 million. So they're just over the 5% threshold. So that's what we're pre-qualifying them for. They're pre-qualified for the Oklahoma State Rebate Program. They're doing all their post-production here, which is really important to us because those are high-tech jobs. I could see that being a niche for us going forward. We really want to incentivize post-production, music production, scoring, those kinds of things here. So that's a key piece. They're recording and producing their music here. And based on their qualifying expenditures of 425, less the 25% cap on above the line expenditures, their let's see, our recommended rebate allocation for this film is $21,390. And I would tell you that on a project this size, the rebate is going to be key to them. It's part of the equation that helps them get their projects made. And to some degree, that's true on the studio level too, but especially with our local filmmakers. This is a really nice way to give them a leg up when they're starting out. And we want to keep them here, so it's a good that we can try to take care of them at the beginning of their careers. It's small budget, local. They're starting out in their careers, and they have unique stories to tell that are tied to our city and our history. And again, this program is really important for economic impact, jobs creation, diversifying our economy, and helping create jobs for our younger class of people who want creative tech jobs, who might go out of state otherwise if we can't support them. So I'm happy to answer any questions about this project.
Any questions? I do have one, but not necessarily tied to this project. But when you do the rebate piece and you go in, the third party validates all the numbers and everything. So at that point is when the rebate actually kicks in, is that correct?
They let us know the results of the third-party CPA review, the firm in Oklahoma City. Right now we have one approved. I'd like to expand that more in case they get really busy. They do a random sampling review, and then they let us know the results. And if they're not hitting any of the marks that were set forth by the city that are also in the application form, we base the rebate on whatever it is. You know, if we need to reduce it, we do. We don't go above, but we can go below.
Low. Great, thank you. All right, if there's no further questions, we can take a motion on item 4C. We have a motion and a second. And the item passes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Brings us to item 4D, a resolution approving the American Indian Cultural Center Foundation's 2023-2024 fiscal year budget. Ms. McSpadden.
Yes, this is the first of a few of our annual agreements that we'll be looking at today. So this is the agreement for the First Americans Museum. We are looking at $1.5 million funded from the escrow account that was set up by the Chickasaws. This is the final year for that funding. And then to make up the balance of the $4 million, $2.5 million from the general fund for a total of $4 million, which is a 0% increase over their last year's contract. Happy to answer questions.
Any questions? If not, we can take a motion. We have a motion, a second. Any item passes. Brings us to item 4E, a joint resolution renewing the fiscal year 24 agreement with the Alliance for Economic Development of Oklahoma City Incorporated. Ms.
Yeah.
McSpadden.
So this is our annual contract with the Alliance for Economic Development Services. This represents a 5% increase over last year, just an increase for salaries and various things. And other than the MAPS funding, so we still have a flat $50,000 provided by MAPS 4 for various real estate and those other project support that they provide. Happy to answer questions.
We can take a motion. A motion, and a second. The item passes. Brings us to item 4F, joint resolution renewing the fiscal year 24 agreement with the Myriad Botanical Gardens Foundation. Ms. McSpadden.
Yes, so this is our annual agreement for support at the Myriad Gardens for the Myriad Gardens Foundation to run the Crystal Bridge in the surrounding area. This budget or contract represents a 6% increase over last year. Predominantly, the increases there are for salaries, insurance increases, and IT-related increases are the bulk of that. And the city subsidy, this represents 47% of the total cost of the Myriad Gardens operation, which is the exact same percentage we had last year. We're moving towards a split. Brent had a plan moving forward to do a 30%, a third, where they have a third provided by operations, a third provided by donations and other activities like that, and then a third provided by city subsidy. The closing that they had where they did the renovation kind of disturbed that process, but we're going to get back on track and kind of work towards that again. So.
Joanna, this may be an unfair question, but historically, over the last 3 years, what percentage increase have they had? If it was 6% this year,
It has not been that high. I'd have to go look, and I can get you that information, but it has not. This was kind of a big jump, and we all kind of looked at it. That's inflation and some other things.
Sure.
Looking at some increases that the city's seen on their own cost, it seemed pretty reasonable.
I'm respecting inflation and everything else. It's not questioning, just
I'll
curious.
get you. We've got
of
the
trend.
history of the contract, and I can pull that up and get you the increases.
Thank you, Joanne.
I think one key note there is something you mentioned, which is this is like the same percentage of their budget versus the previous year. And I know previously this percentage has been smaller and smaller and smaller. So, but with the redoing of the Crystal Bridge and everything like that, I know they've had some hurdles they've had to overcome. So, good on them.
Yes.
All right. If we don't have any more questions, we can take a motion. A motion and a second. Any item passes. Brings us to item 4G, the joint resolution renewing the fiscal year 24 agreement with the Scissortail Park Foundation.
Yes.
Ms. McSpadden.
So this contract for Scissortail represents a 7% increase, so a little bit more of an increase on this one. The predominant change there is an increase in security needs They're bumping up some costs for security, providing extra security overnight. They've had some vandalism and some other things, and so they're having to bump that up. The other major change for Scissortail was the loss of the naming rights revenue. So there was I think it was a 4-year contract for naming rights, and that was a $400,000 revenue stream that's going to go away this coming year. And so kind of filling in that gap. And that helps to explain also that this year's subsidy is covering 69% of their budget. Last year we covered 65%, so we're kind of going in the wrong direction. I think looking at their revenue streams, they're still kind of trying to figure out the Spark Cafe and some of those other things that are provide revenue to the park, and just kind of figure out what works there for them. And so I think we're still in kind of some preliminary, their first couple of years were COVID, and so I think we're still sort of in that normalizing period for them.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, we can take a motion. Please vote. And that item passes as well. Item 4H is a professional services agreement with the Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation Incorporated. Ms. McSpadden.
Okay, this is our annual contract with the Chamber to provide economic development services, predominantly job creation. This contract represents a 4% increase over last year. We still have the standard fees for the SIP contracts that they bring for us for the job creation program, and everything else is pretty standard. Happy to answer questions about that one if you have any.
Any questions? Nope. Yes?
Are you still pleased with your performance?
I am very pleased.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we can take a motion. Motion and second, please vote. That item passes. Item 4I, fiscal year 2023-2024 Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust budget. Ms. McSpadden.
Yes, I have a couple of slides for you to look at. I'm just going to summarize the budget for you. So the first slide represents the revenue budget. Our total budget this year is $158 million. And I've got the revenue categories here for you to look at, just to give you a couple of points as comparison to prior year. Fund balance and ad valorem taxes had pretty little change over last year. Sales tax and state match almost doubled this year, and that is due to increases in activity at the Omni and Okana coming online for next year. And so we're preparing for those revenue sources to come in. The general fund went up by 20%. That is a result of increases in contracts, many of which we just went through. And then lastly, miscellaneous is up by some astronomical percentage. It's $3 million, and that's due to interest. So if you look through the budget pages, the individual funds, you'll see that those interest amounts are much higher than the prior year, and as a result, we have money sitting in the bank that's earning interest, and we're going to make a little money on it this year. Next, I've got the expense category budget. Major changes here, our reserve for future program costs is up by 5%. That is just, we're banking fund balance in certain programs. We've got debt reserve and some other things that, well, that's got its own category, but we're kind of banking those funds for future projects. Our project costs category is up by 23%, and that's just a result of activity that we know is going to happen in FY24. We're preparing the budget for those things. And then our annual service contracts, again, what we just went over, those are up by about 9.5% over last year. And then the final slide I've just got by category, our funds. A few comments. GOLT is our SIP fund for our job creation. You'll notice that one is decreasing a little bit, and that's just as we spend fund balance. We don't have revenue coming in. Those are bond sales that generate the revenue for that fund. TIF2 still collects ad valorem, and we've got projects coming through, so that one's going to see some activity. TIF 9 and 15, if you look at that one compared to prior year, we've got, it's increased by 4 million, and that's the Hamlin Hotel that we approved a few months ago. We're still holding those funds until they complete construction, and that's when those funds will go out. I'm sorry, when they begin construction, that's an upfront, but there's an agreement and they haven't started construction. So Wheeler's seeing some minimal increases just based on sales activities over there. You'll see that we've added I've called it the FAM, so it's TIF 14 and 16. That's actually the name in the project plan, but that is the O'Connor project coming online. So that's brand new at $3 million for the budget. And then general economic development is up by about $2 million. And again, that's a result of the increases in the annual contracts, and then O'Connor and FAM also run through there too. So happy to answer questions. Overall, we've got an increase of $8.5 million. Predominantly interest is a big number there. O'Connor and Omni coming on. Increased contributions from the general fund for our annual contracts, those increases that we just looked at. And then just regular increased tax collection from ad valorem. I built in about a 3% increase, and that's pretty average. So happy to answer questions on the individual budgets that you have, or of course follow up if I need to.
Any questions? No? If not, we can take a motion. We have a motion and a second. Any item passes. Brings us to item 4J, to receive the Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation fiscal year 23 third quarter report. Mr. Long.
So good afternoon. I'm speaking on behalf of Jeff Seymour. Jeff is at the International Aerospace Trade Show, hoping to recruit several aviation projects to our region. I'm joined by two members of our research team. I'd like them to stand. Monique Walker and Lily Terry. We appreciate you being here today. Next slide. So to recap our activity for the first quarter, we did have one recruitment win, Project Trax, a national tire distribution facility formerly announced Oklahoma City as their location. It's a 150,000 square foot distribution center. The project will bring more than 40 jobs and $15 million in capital investment. Consumers from Oklahoma City will actually benefit from this project because it will bring more national branded tires into the market at lower prices. Project Trax may be familiar to this group. Late last year, a representative came before this group. They were delayed in the land acquisition project, but they are now ready to move forward, and they will not formally announce until a press release. Pratt Whitney is one expansion project that recently broke ground. It's a new 255,845,000 square foot sustainment center. It's a headquarters for military engines. It's going to help to consolidate 6 locations for the company and secure the company's long-term future in Oklahoma City. We have 24 local companies announcing project expansion. We had 5 site visits to Oklahoma City. Altogether, for this quarter, our announced jobs were a little over 1,000, with $293 million in new capital investment, with an average wage of over $57,000. This is our pipeline, or our sales funnel for the team. So your economic development team is currently working 83 projects, representing over 53,000 jobs, $925 million in payroll, and over $25 billion in CapEx. That CapEx number is especially large, bigger than what we typically will see, because we're working several EV battery manufacturing projects that have substantial capital investment tied to them. On the acreage side, 4 of those projects in our pipeline are considered mega sites with over 500 acre requirements. That's becoming more and more of a challenge, even nationwide, as organizations are trying to identify land that they can parcel together for these types of projects. We have 8 projects in the pending decision stage, and 3 of them have shortlisted Oklahoma City. In terms of the facility mix, nearly 60% of all the projects are manufacturing, followed by aerospace and distribution. So what we're hearing nationally, in the same way that our pipeline is demonstrating that there are a lot of manufacturing and distribution projects, we're hearing that nationally as well. The aerospace projects that are being shopped around are requiring existing hangar space. That large industrial site, as I mentioned, those, especially on these EV battery sites, they are requiring well in excess of 500 acres to 1,000 acres for those projects. Last May of last year, we actually peaked as a metro area in terms of our overall job posting activity. We've seen some normalization since as companies are trying to modify their hiring plans coming out of COVID. Still seeing a lot of demand for engineering and high-skilled positions. So next steps. So we're continuing to build upon small and diverse business capacity. We're partnering with the Alliance on those projects as well as the City of Oklahoma City. We are working to try to aggregate land to address those mega site projects. Continued support for the aerospace vertical. The International Aerospace Show that Jeff is at, there are 14 exhibitors that currently have projects that are shopping the South and Midwest regions of the United States that we're hopeful for. And then for digital STEM skills pipeline development, the Chamber is currently working to try to enhance our programs that will address those future needs. And just a brief moment on economic conditions. The Oklahoma City metro area currently has a 2.1% unemployment rate. That's the 4th lowest among large metro areas in the country, over 1 million population. Compared to the nation is at about 3.4%. And the broad end of the spectrum, Birmingham, Alabama, actually has the lowest unemployment rate of any large metro at 1.6%. On the other end is Las Vegas at 5.5%. So there is a little bit of a spread, but really nationwide we're seeing low unemployment rates. When we released our forecast for 2023 in cooperation with Russell Evans, we forecasted growth this year of 2.2%. We're adding about 14,000 jobs. We're very much encouraged to see that over the first 5 months of the year, we're outperforming our original projections. Currently, we're at 3.5% year-over-year growth. We did anticipate that recessionary pressures would gain traction toward the end of the year, but we're hopeful to maintain some of that job growth. In terms of our job posting activity, we are down 15% as compared to last May, which was our peak. 7 of the top 10 job posters in the Oklahoma City metro area are in the healthcare sector, with nurse, sales rep, and customer service representatives being the highest job postings. And 67%, or nearly 7 out of every 10 of those job postings, no longer have an educational requirement at all, or just a high school diploma. That really feeds into some national trends that we're seeing, is that as companies are encountering those low unemployment rates, they're getting more creative, trying to remove some of those educational requirements and replace them with skills. So with that, any questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Eric, in terms of the trend on our pipeline, we are still very high in our pipeline numbers compared to previous years, aren't we?
Yes, yeah, we've been in that 80 to 90 project range for several months, and so that's encouraging that Oklahoma City is continuing to be on the radar of these companies.
And tell Jeff he can't come back to Oklahoma until he secures at least 2 of those 14 prospects.
Okay, we'll do it.
Any other questions? If not, we can take a motion to receive. Okay, we have a second. Please vote.
Thank you, we
And the
appreciate it.
item passes. Thank you, sir. All right, brings us to item 5 on the agenda, the general manager's report. Ms. McSpadden? I can't hear you without the,
I have no comments unless you have questions.
any questions? No, okay, thank you. All right, any comments from staff? No? Trustees? Have any citizens signed up to speak today? If not, that takes us to item 7. We are adjourned. Thank y'all.